So we've been forced into this cycle.
Yeah, I think that obviously I have to be careful in criticizing the mainstream media because the mainstream media is a hell of a lot better than the alternative media. There are standards of accuracy and fact checking, but I think there is a negativity bias that, first of all, that allows figures like the president to game the system, to basically jerk the media around with these daily outrages. That creates an opening for also terrorists and rampage shooters who know that they can dominate the news and get saturation coverage by killing some innocent people. And the other downside is leading people to a kind of fatalism, kind of numbness. And that's a common reaction that people have to the news now, that some people withdraw from the news, others say it just ruins their day. Now there's a lot of bad things happening, but since there been even worse things in the past, if the improvements are not also covered, if there isn't more context, more trends, more data, more solutions, then people can come away with a kind of impotent fatalism.
I loved reading that because I would like to be doing more. I love human interest stories. I'd like to be doing more of them. And then I came across some of it, and for instance, young blacks being shot by police. It's just, or being young blacks being shot by police, or being arrested for going to Starbucks, or selling bottles of water, or napping.
Nobody getting arrested by being in Starbucks. You're misrepresenting it.
But at any rate, if I feel like I owe it to that community, which has been talking about being driving while black for decades, and now we see it because of social media. But then on the other hand, you had a stat, which I it was kind of hard to believe, that 3 separate studies show that blacks are as likely as whites to get shot by police.
Yes.
Whites are actually more likely to get shot.
If you control for the neighborhoods, for the crime rates of the neighborhoods where the police are, then there's actually no evidence of racial bias in police shootings.
But that controlling for the neighborhoods takes out a big problem.
Well,
those neighborhoods.
But it's those neighborhoods. Those are the neighborhoods that have the highest crime rates, and so police have to be there, and police have to at least threaten the use of deadly force.
But should we not report when young blacks are suddenly showing up on social media?
Should the media also report when young whites are shot by police?
Yes, but that you don't.
And I think the problem is that the issue has been so racialized, and there have been so few data on what are the rates of shooting, that it may be not only inflame the racial tensions in a way that leads to a backlash. Again, I don't want to blame the media for Donald Trump, but he did capitalize on a kind of dystopian narrative of everything in the country.
Make America great again.
And that crime is going up, false. Although crime did go up in the 2 years before the election, after the Ferguson riots, and police did back off. It's controversial whether the police being intimidated by protests and mobs led to the increase in crime. But there was an uptick after Ferguson. And I think part of it is, if the data are not presented, if it's just the incidents, then people can misunderstand what the nature of the phenomenon is, which is that police shoot too many people.
But stay with implicit bias, though, and stay with the rash of young blacks being arrested for golfing, or police called, because they're golfing, or they're napping, or they're, are we ginning up something, or are we ignoring a whole community if we don't? It's not right.
I think with those, before it's presented as, we just know that an anecdote doesn't establish whether there is a phenomenon or a trend.
And that's what media does not
And if it's just a story as opposed to the data, I think
if they're there, we can.
the press commissioning studies, as the Washington Post did, is a responsible way of dealing with it. But just the question is, how often are whites falsely arrested or turned in, or how are they falsely accused?
Yeah. You know what? I just heard a great word. Book signing. Did you hear that?
We're double checking. We're double checking on that.
So go ahead, because you didn't get a chance to ask questions in there.
That's okay?
Yeah.
Have you ever thought that some of us has supported and voted for Trump because we were afraid of the alternative communism that would come here, where people would be traded for wheat like I was?
I have thought that I don't think it's a valid reason to vote for Donald Trump because Hillary Clinton was not a communist.
But she was certainly going to bring us closer to that.
Oh, God,
There were going to be more control. There were going to be more unions. There were going to be
It's
less
worth hearing.
business.
It's a voice worth hearing.
Yeah.
It's a
No,
voice worth
I
hearing.
know my voice is never right.
No, your voice is worth
But I
hearing.
do disagree with you that the increase in labor union does not bring on Venezuela.
No, but it's getting one step closer. I just questioned one of the.
Where are you from?
But, sorry.
I'm from the last empire on earth. The only place that trade people for wheat. During
was?
the embargo.
Where?
Ukrainian Soviet.
Yeah.
Ukrainian.
Ukraine.
Soviet.
Yeah, I think it's an interesting question. If you have increased a stronger labor union movement, if you have more regulation of the workplace, if you have more regulation of the environment, is that a slippery slope toward
And you don't think it's
totalitarian?
slippery slope?
It's not. We know that it's not. I mean, I think it's a question that is worth asking. But we know that there are countries like Denmark, like New Zealand, like Canada, where I grew up,
Who are
which have
incredibly much more equated in cultures, in a
Yes, but-
background,
well-
in a values.
true, but well, Canada is a pretty ethnically heterogeneous country. New Zealand has a large Maori minority as well as a large Indian and Chinese minority.
Except for you and few people, there's a lot less people who want to move from Canada.
I'm going to hold this up for 1 second, and except to say that it's interesting that Trump's right-hand man backed the autocratic president, the Russian-backed president
Yes, of Ukraine.
I don't know that he backed
Oh, yes, he
him
did.
up.
No, yeah, he did. He
There's
worked for
such a
him.
way to pacify people like Putin.
He worked for him. But anyway, we have good news.
I've got a
Quick
question.
question
I've
before
got a
book
question.
signing in just a couple minutes.
Stephen, I'm specifically asking this
And I agree
so.
with you on communism, but Hillary Clinton is not a communist.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I know,
It's all right, don't worry
I
about it.
disagree with you.
Question.
Yeah, so actually I just read a news article this recently, but we're talking about social justice warriors. It's just recently in the conversation, and I read a news article that gave me actually a lot of optimism. 'Cause you get a lot of news from about the far left, and that I actually learned only about 8% of our nation is actually this far left, and most of it's white majority. And they make over 100,000, and most of them are
Yes, I know
college
it's-
educated, and that's because I'm thinking about it's this.
Yeah, political
Universe-
correctness is,
yes,
is a rich
yes.
white phenomenon.
Yeah, so the thing is,
That's right.
what gives me kind of hope is Jonathan Haidt and his Paradox Academy gives me hope. Do you think that with this new rise of the Paradox Academy, and I know there's a lot of issues between, especially with Harvard now and their admissions with Asians, discrimination of Asians, that it gives more kind of hope that people are going to be kind of now get more free choice in terms of where they want to get their education, not be so forced into that kind of these liberal colleges and only this left thought, quote unquote. Get more free choice.
I hope so, yeah.
Education.
The question was about a recent study, came out I think 2 days ago.
Yeah, now
That,
about 2/3 of Americans don't really give, lack of a
Vast
don't give a
majority
shit
of all
about
ethnic groups and
political currency.
races are hostile to what they think of as political correctness.
Yes.
The main exception being rich whites,
Yes.
rich educated whites.
We're going to end it on that because guess what? We're going in.
Do you think
Okay.
We're
that's going to
going
be a
in
good
for book
teacher?
signing, and you can ask him
Yeah,
when
me
he
too.
signs your book.
And Paradox
Come on,
Academy,
everybody.
Quillette magazine, I don't know if
Yes,
you've seen that.
yes, I'm very optimistic about that. Thank you.
Speak, President.
I've got a question. I lost this on radio.